Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I thank our wonderful chairman. I thank our ranking member, Eliot Engel. This committee is a model for other committees in the U.S. House of Representatives. We truly work in a bipartisan manner, and it is because of the leadership of Mr. Royce and Mr. Engel. They set the pace. And, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this bill before us, House Resolution 259, by my Florida colleague, Congressman Ron DeSantis, who has been very active in the issue of human rights in our Western Hemisphere. And his bill expresses concern and condemnation over the dire political, economic, social, and humanitarian crisis that is taking place in Venezuela today. And I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this important resolution, and I thank my Florida congressional colleague, Ron DeSantis, for his leadership on this issue, on the issue of the lack of freedom and democracy in my native homeland of Cuba, and what he's helping the people of Nicaragua achieve in having separation of powers. There's been a real problem throughout the hemisphere, Mr. Speaker, and by approving this important measure, which is bipartisan today, this body will once again demonstrate that we stand in solidarity with the people of Venezuela and their fight for justice, for freedom and democracy. These are values that we hold so dearly in our country, and we take it for granted that we live in this great country where we can express our thoughts and in this wonderful republic. But in so many places in our very own hemisphere, Mr. Speaker, they don't have that luxury. And Venezuelans have been deprived of these key values of justice, of freedom and democracy for far too long. First, at the grip of Hugo Chavez, a failed socialist leader, and now with his hand-picked successor, another failure of a man and a leader, Nicolás Maduro. The Maduro regime has hijacked all democratic institutions in Venezuela. It has run the economy so far into the ground that there's hardly any food or medicine or even basic necessities. Inflation is at an all-time high, and people cannot afford their daily life. The economic situation, it's in turmoil. It's heading toward an even deeper downward spiral because this regime of Nicolás Maduro is corrupt and is incompetent, and they only care about filling their own coffers and staying in power no matter what. All the while, the people of Venezuela continue to suffer. But this does not seem to trouble Maduro. It does not seem to trouble his cronies. They are enriching themselves on the suffering of the people of Venezuela. And from this illicit activity, like drug trafficking and corruption, they are filling their coffers. 4 minutes?
I will yield the gentlelady an additional minute since she's speaking from her heart. Two minutes to the gentlelady from Florida.
Well, thank you very much.
Gentlelady's recognized.
Thank you, sir. And they're even using this humanitarian crisis that they have created to defraud organizations that are looking to bring much-needed food into the country. So this resolution in front of us, Mr. Speaker, it's bipartisan, it's strong, and it calls on the administration to support the people of Venezuela, to continue to impose targeted sanctions on those responsible for the destruction of democratic institutions in Venezuela. And this resolution also urges important bodies like the Organization of American States, and we will have soon a new U.S. ambassador to this that esteemed institution, to support the principles of the Inter-American Democratic Charter and demand a non-corrupt electoral council, as well as calling for the release of all political prisoners. So I thank Mr. DeSantis for authoring this resolution. I urge my colleagues to offer their strong support and to join us in sending this unified message to Maduro that his actions will not be allowed to continue without a strong U.S. response. And what is that response, Mr. Speaker? I call on the administration to use more targeted sanctions. We have sent to the administration a list a very long list of names. So has Senators Rubio and Menendez. Mr. Sears has joined me, Mr. Royce, Mr. Engel. There are many more people, thugs and cronies of Maduro, who are enriching themselves with the suffering of the Venezuelan people. They want to come to the U.S. We should not extend that courtesy to them. So there are consequences to these acts. We will continue to pressure the Maduro regime until democratic order is restored in Venezuela and this grave humanitarian crisis is resolved once and for all. I thank the gentleman for the time. I thank Mr. Engel, and I thank my friend Mr. Acevedo and Eric on the Democratic side for their help with this resolution, and most especially the author of this resolution, our great Congressman Ron DeSantis.